up in Florida, where President Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort will be repped by a Democrat. Emily Gregory won the special election for House District 87 in Florida. She beat the Trump-endorsed candidate by about 3 points. And that's a complete reversal from 2024, when Trump won the district by 11 points. Now, a little bit about Gregory. She's a small business owner. She's married to a U.S. Army officer. She says her win proves the electorate is ready for change.
Everyone thought we were crazy for saying we could win this seat. Everyone said it was out of reach. I think it's a real reaction to the current policies at the national and state level. And I think that is a clear indication from voters it's the wrong track.
Let's talk more about this with T.W. Origi, former senior communications aide to Lindsey Graham and host of a new podcast along with his co-host Bill Evangelopoulos called What's Your Take? And Herbie Ziskin, former White House Principal Deputy Communications Director under President Biden. Good to have both of you here. T.W., I'll begin with you since you've got this new podcast. What does it say if Republicans can't hold on to the Mar-a-Lago district?
Well, I always think it's a bit of a fool's errand, Laura, to look too deep into House races, state House
Seriously?
races. I do. It could be a data point for Democrats to show they're making progress, but it's a race that I would be shocked if many people involved in were really tracking in their day-to-day lives. This is honest.
But Trump endorsed the opponent. Obviously, he was tracking it.
He sure did, and there were a lot of other races that Democrats have flipped before. But look, don't mistake these small things for macro things. So what I mean by that is, if you look at the generic ballot right now, numbers just came out from Reuters the other day. Democrats hold a 2-point lead over Republicans in a generic congressional ballot. And you talk about 2018, the last big Democratic wave. This time, they were up 9 points. That is a massive swing. Voters still believe that the Democrats have a massive brand problem. So I don't want to confuse perhaps Trump's dip in unpopularity with Democratic popularity. The energy's on the Democratic side, but we're a long way from Election Day 2026.
What do you think, Herbie?
I think this is a flashing bright red light for the Republican Party. This is a seat that the Republican in 2024 won by 19 points, and the Republicans just lost this seat. And it's not one data point, it's over 25 data points, over 24 races nationally in swing districts and Republican seats that Democrats have won since 2024. And it shows. The president has 35% approval. He's deeply unpopular. This week, he's focused on paving the West Wing colonnade with black asphalt. He's not focused on lowering prices, the number one issue, and it's starting to hurt Republicans down ballot, and it's going to become a bigger and bigger problem for Republicans in a few months.
Well, he's very focused on voting. He says he did vote in the election, and he voted by mail, which, of course, is quite ironic because he just called cheating yesterday.
We're the only country that does mail-in voting. Mail-in voting means mail-in cheating. I call it mail-in cheating. And we got to do something about it all.
You know, it doesn't make sense to a lot of people who know that a big chunk of his base are older voters who rely on mail-in voting. He obviously would technically qualify as an older voter who relied on mail-in voting as well. I mean, why do this? It seems like it's cutting off one's nose to spite your face.
Well, I would concede the point that it would look good for him to vote in person. That always looks good. Might be good
That's
to note.
not his point,
Hold on a second, but I'm going to get to that point in a second. It might be good to note that we have a few things going on in this world right now that are demanding our president's attention and should have his full attention. But beyond that, the president is really talking about states that mail out ballots to everyone, whether they ask for them or not. That has been always his chief concern. And you just referenced the SAVE Act, which is Donald Trump's cure to all of this. It doesn't ban mail-in voting. It requires proof of citizenship to register to vote and proof of ID to vote. But there is no ban in his signature legislation for mail-in voting. So what he is talking about is what's happening in states like California and elsewhere where they're throwing ballots all over the place, whether you're registered or not, whether you could be a citizen or not the efficacy of voting in person if you are a registered citizen of this country.
If you're following me on Instagram, I did an explainer about the SAVE Act and what qualifies as appropriate ID or not, and the hurdles. I mean, I was a voting rights attorney for the DOJ, so check that out at the Largo. So we had Herbie. I mean, one thing that Democrats are talking about is affordability. They're not talking about relitigating the idea of whether our mail-in ballot system or our elections are somehow flawed. So do you think that Democrats have an advantage strategically to focus on the kitchen table issues as opposed to the democratic principle issues?
Absolutely. And the president's the proverbial boxer in the corner punching himself right now. He's obsessed with the 2020 election, which he lost by over 7 million votes, and he will not stop. And it's the SAVE Act, and trying to invent this problem of voter fraud that does not exist, that I think we can agree does not exist. And then it's not just this. You know, the president has nominated 37 judicial nominees in his second term. Every single one of them, with no exception, has said that has not said that Donald Trump lost the 2020 election under oath and sworn testimony, and will not say what happened on January 6th. This is the price of admissions to be a federal judge to peddle the big lie. And the SAVE Act is another distraction for a president that's not focused on affordability. He's focused on the 2020 election, and it's a problem for Republicans.
I want to play for you the conversation my colleague Erin Burnett actually had with Emily Gregory before the race was called. And Erin asked her smartly if she thought that Trump's endorsement mattered in the race.
My opponent put it front and center, and I focused on the issues that matter most to Florida families. Everyone is feeling that affordability crisis, and the last thing that Florida families needed when they're struggling is $4 gas. So that is what I spoke about, and that is what I talked to voters about.
TW, when you hear that, and obviously she was successful over a Trump-endorsed candidate, do you see any concern that Democrats would be capitalizing on the idea of the dissatisfaction about the economy?
No, it's always going to be the economy. The economy is always going to be the top issue in the election. And I think what we overlooked here.
So why won't Trump focus on that?
Well, I would disagree with the premise. I actually do think he is focusing on the economy. I think as president, there is a whole host of issues that you need to be focused on at the same time. You have to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. This is a president who put forward and protected the largest tax cut in history. Democrats wanted to pass the largest tax increase in history. He cut taxes on Social Security, taxes on overtime, taxes on tip, all things Democrats.
But taxes, I don't want to interrupt you, but taxes are not always synonymous with the economic concerns of a nation. You know, it's part of a nuanced part of it. I'm talking about gas prices, I'm talking about groceries, I'm talking about the cost of living for everyday people.
Yes.
When people think about their individual economies, they're thinking about those issues. And that's my point when I ask about why the president, you have to know that this is the number one issue. If you're saying it's the economy, it's stupid, not looking at me when I say that.
Yeah.
But why do you think, how are Democrats going to be positioned to try to capitalize on what is the perception, even in his backyard, that he's not focused enough, even through an endorsed candidate?
Their job is to focus relentlessly on cost of living, on affordability.
Are they doing a good enough job at that?
I mean, they've won 25 seats. As I said, their Democrats have won every single race in the swing district or Republican district. Now, are they doing a sufficient job? More needs to be done. This
Like
needs
what?
to be the focus. Continuing to talk about it and try not to take the bait when there's other issues that arise. But it's not, in the last 80 years, the president's party has lost seats in the House in every single midterm, save for 2. The headwinds for Republicans, even before we get into the dynamics right now, were already there. And it's on the incoming president to focus on this. And he's focusing on, he has his tariffs which are unpopular and driving up prices. He has his war, which is unpopular and driving up gas prices. He's trying to federalize elections right now and slowing down lines at the airport because of holding up TSA funding. These are all unpopular things. None of them are focused on affordability.
We'll see what happens in the end. Gentlemen, thank you.